Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing some much more serious news than I usually discuss on this channel. Usually I try to keep it just strictly on what exactly is going on with the Sharks roster as a whole and what they're going to be putting out onto the ice, which is why when we came to the Evander Kane news in the previous offseason, which was the fact that he was bankrupt, I didn't really make a specific video about it. I would bring it up a couple of times as sort of adversity that Kane was facing in his own personal light, but I didn't want to actually talk about it all that much because it didn't actually relate too much to what the Sharks were doing on the ice, because I didn't think that it was going to end up leading to the termination of his contract, and I ended up being right about that. However, with this new serious allegations brought against Evander Kane in this offseason today, in fact, this is something that I cannot avoid talking about. So it is his own wife making these allegations, which of course adds a lot of sort of sincerity to them, and that these allegations are not only is Evander Kane seemingly a very bad husband in his own personal life, but more relating to actually the Sharks as a whole, he is also allegedly gambling on the Sharks games and potentially even betting against the San Jose Sharks, which of course calls into question the integrity of Evander Kane as a whole, and obviously leads up to the NHL having to take some sort of action, and they have released their own statement that they're going to be launching a full-scale investigation into these allegations made by Evander Kane's wife. And this is obviously a huge deal, but it is kind of odd to think about Evander Kane, widely regarded as the Sharks' best player over this past season, but then maybe that actually sort of increases the odds that these allegations are true. Why is that? Well, because of course Evander Kane is not betting on every single San Jose Sharks game, so when it comes to every single player at the NHL level, they will occasionally, especially in the regular season, have an off game, and that is to be expected at the NHL level. But with Evander Kane now, all of a sudden, you take a look at his season thus far and you see so many fantastic games and then the occasional bad game, but now with these allegations, now you're wondering, is this bad game just the general grind of the NHL catching up, or was it maybe an intentional loss by the side of Evander Kane? This is just some huge news, some huge drama, and it's kind of hard to foresee Evander Kane ending up playing not only another game with the San Jose Sharks, but another game at the NHL level, because even if these allegations are not 100% true, there has to be some nuggets of truth to this, considering it is coming from his own wife, who must know a lot about him, considering they're married. And so even if it's not necessarily betting on Sharks games, maybe there is still something that would absolutely end up terminating his contract. So this investigation from the NHL will indeed start, and I suspect that the Sharks will be out their best player this past season coming into the next year. So where does that lead the San Jose Sharks as a whole? Well, this past offseason, Doug Wilson has been focused on trying to get the Sharks to a at least semi-competitive level going into the next season, addressing holes that were on the team this past year by picking up players like Nick Bonino to fill the third line center spot, by bolstering depth in general by picking up players like Andrew Cogliano, as well as completely changing up the Sharks goaltending tandem by bringing in Adin Hill as well as James Reimer. But now their top six was already kind of shaky, featuring two players like Barabanov, who has had very little NHL actual playtime, as well as Kevin Labanc, who is pretty much a borderline top six forward. And now losing a player like Evander Kane will absolutely destroy and decimate the Sharks' top six and make it so that it is probably one of the worst top six units in the NHL, and it's very difficult to win when you have such a struggling top six. I mean, you take a look at a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, who managed to field, Stamkos, Kucherov, Braden Point, amongst other fantastic players, and then you look at what the San Jose Sharks are now going to be dealing with without Evander Kane, and you could see why they may end up struggling this coming season, which maybe will be a good thing for the Sharks, as their first-round pick in the coming draft could end up being pretty high and help them be competitive a few years down the line. time, but that's really not what the point here is. The point is Evander Kane and these allegations, if they are true, are extremely serious, of course. And what this also kind of brings up is a report that was brought up a few weeks ago, which was that there had been this rift forming between the Sharks locker room as well as Evander Kane, and these reports had been quickly dismissed because they were coming from, while a reputable reporter, a reporter who was not really connected to the San Jose Sharks in any which way. But now it seems that those reports may actually have some weight to them, because it seems as though if the players on the Sharks, while likely not aware of the gambling situation of him betting against the San Jose Sharks, potentially aware with how he sort of dealt with things outside of hockey, outside of the ice rink, and maybe those rifts are absolutely true. In the end, the saying goes, where there is smoke, there is indeed fire, and we may have very well seen the last of Evander Kane at the NHL level. Class dismissed.